All right, Hunter Wiley, thank you for coming on the Think Wise podcast. We're excited to have you.
It's a blessing to be here. I feel honored just to share a space on the screen with both of you. Seriously, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So right off the bat, I want to ask you what your personal definition of success is, because we're all about like interviewing successful people like you to help young professionals know what it takes to be successful. But everyone's got their own definition of success. So to give our audience some context within your story, what's your definition of success?
I love it, man. Just getting right into it. That's how I like to roll too. Yeah, man, I really don't, when you say a success like myself, I really don't feel like a success, even a little bit. So I appreciate you even saying that. Yeah, man, I mean, it's changed. It's really changed over the years. I feel like each season has its own period of what success looks like. I can tell you for this season right now, for me, success looks like margin and capacity. I mean, if I have margin and capacity, when I look at my calendar and I see that I have some space and margin, I feel like, hey, man, I'm pretty successful this week. But that was not the case 3 years ago. 3 years ago it would have been, hey, schedule's full. I'm feeling momentum. That was what success felt like to me. So yeah, I think it changes season by season. But for me right now, it looks like having margin, having time to play with my son and my pregnant wife and hanging out with them. And yeah, so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I like that answer. How you say there's seasons. Like right now, time is more valuable to you than it might have been when you were 22, 23. So
right.
I think that's encouraging for people to hear too. Like if they feel like their own version of success is changing over the years, like that's not a problem. That's probably pretty natural.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think a moving target is really good, man. It keeps me motivated. I think if it was the same definition of success season after season, it would get
I got to move the target based on what stage of life you're in, what season you're in. That's really good. So you are a successful entrepreneur. You have built something. You are in the process of building something. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? Is that something that you thought would always happen for you?
I just knew it was going to happen, man. Since middle school, I've been flipping things. So I don't know if that's just how God wired me or because I grew up not having a lot of money. So I just had to figure out a way to make it happen. I don't know or if maybe it's a little bit of both. But man, since middle school, if I could get my hands on some candy, I'm not eating it. I'm going to flip it, for $3. So I don't know. I regularly question God, like, man, why did you wire me this way? Like, I don't know if I would have chosen this for myself, the like constant need to grow and to sell and to scale. I don't know if I would have chosen that, but that's how I've always been. I knew I was going to be in this role since I was a little kiddo.
Were there ever times where you didn't think that, or do you think you've always known you wanted to have your own business?
Dude, there are probably 3 days a week where I'm like, man, I need to go work at Starbucks because maybe I'm not fit for this CEO entrepreneurship role. But then the other 4 days, I'm like, hey, man, this is right where I'm supposed to be. It's like a 60-40 split, man. But yeah, that's the best answer I have for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you why and when you first became interested in marketing. So I guess first give listeners some background of Beyond Blue and what you do.
Yeah. So I started Beyond Blue 6 years ago. And I started out of a little barn in a little barn in Loveland. There was an extra room that I could rent that acted as a workspace for me. And from there grew it. And we're at 15 employees now. And we've doubled every year. And so it's been a fun entrepreneurial ride. I did not think it was going to grow this fast. And I also didn't have a huge love for marketing right away. I just love to sell. And so, starting off in my career, I was going door to door doing paint sales when I was 18. And that's where I started to fall in love with, the business side of selling. Cause I started to manage some marketers, and I started to have some high schoolers come out with me, and we'd go door to door just selling paint. And I did that for a couple of years. And I saw like, hey, the professor that I'm learning from, I'm currently making more than selling paint. So why am I in school? So that was my first thought. So I dropped out of school when I realized that I was actually making more money than my professors. Cause I just was loving it and was doing really well selling paint. And then, really just started to work at a couple of different agencies, learning from them, started doing marketing for a couple of friends' businesses, and then met my current business partners who I started Beyond Blue with 6 years ago. So that's been like the 60-second overview of how we started the company and how we came to be.
And so personally, I studied marketing in my undergrad. And so I'd just be curious to you, like, where did that initial tug towards marketing come from? And what do you love about it now?
Man, it's a great question. There was never anything particular about marketing that really sparked my interest. It was always just the idea of being able to help people, being able to connect deeply with people, being able to A, make people more money, and B, make me more money. Like all of those things combined led to me loving marketing. And just the cherry on top is I loved the creative side, the creative aspect of marketing, because I'm not creative in any other aspect of my life except through business. And so it became kind of a creative outlet for me in a way that I wasn't expecting. And so that's how I started to fall in love with this idea of marketing and marketing for people's companies and for my own companies.
Yeah, totally. I think one thing that's really cool about marketing is there's kind of a place for everyone, whether you're a creative person and all you want to do is, make visually pleasing graphics. Like there's a place for you. If you're into the numbers side of things and the analytics, there's a place for you. If you're into selling, there's a place for you. There's a lot that goes into it. I think that really speaks to that.
Right. Well, and there's a pretty low barrier to entry. You don't need a master's degree from Harvard to step into marketing. You need to have a hunger, you need to have a drive, but normally you need a heartbeat of wanting to help people. Normally you need a heartbeat of wanting to grow things and work on yourself and grow your own stuff, right? So that's why I love it. It's just like I get so fired up about momentum. When I see and feel momentum, when I feel like I'm growing other people's dreams and aspirations, man, I get so jazzed. So that's why I love marketing, man.
Well, Hunter, I think a lot of our listeners, a lot of young people that I talk to, they're asking the question, how do I find my purpose? How do I find my passion? Or they know their purpose and their passion, and they're thinking that it's a specific job or an industry that they need to go into. And what I want to accentuate what you just said for everyone listening, that your passion and purpose isn't marketing. Your passion and purpose is helping others, helping grow their business, grow your business, scaling, and marketing is the vehicle at which you're using to do that. And so sometimes we need to take our purpose and passion and go there, but other times, there's a specific industry for it, but other times we just need to take that wherever we land, right?
Come on. Yeah. Could not agree more, man. I feel like I could be selling sewage systems and I'd be just as fired up if it meant that I was able to deeply connect with people.
Right. So 6 years ago, you start your business, and time is brilliant because it gives us perfect hindsight vision, right? So if you look back on the last 6 years, is there one thing in particular that you wish you had done differently, or you think, man, if I'd have done this, things could be very different? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Man, that's such a great question. And just to be completely vulnerable as I mold on this question, the initial vulnerable side of me, just says I held on to so much anxiety when it came to business that when I look back, I mean, all the things that I was stressing about just wasted so much of my life and so much of my brain space and mental capacity. And so, man, if there's anything I could do differently, and maybe this is helpful for anyone that's listening who wrestles with anxiety, that, man, it's just not worth it. Like, I stressed about so many things, especially the first couple of years of the business, man, of all the stresses of payroll and hiring new employees and taking big risks. And I was just like crippled at times by the fear of what happens if this doesn't work out? Or let me just stew on the worst case scenario. And, man, I would have just been so much better off just, thinking about that, but really compartmentalizing that and moving on to more productive feats than just stewing on like what I can't control. And so that was like the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question. Is it the anxiety, the need for control, like just opening up my hands and just being willing to let things play out the way they're supposed to?
Have there been any like practical things or specific mindset shifts you've had over the last 6 years that have allowed you to kind of let go of a lot of that anxiety, whether that's like books you read or just things you do every day that have really changed the way you think?
Yeah, man. Having one consistency in my life of an early morning has changed everything for me. I mean, literally everything. So I wake up 2 hours before my son and my wife get up, and I am opening up a book. I'm opening up the Bible, and I'm taking 2 hours to really just meditate and ground myself. Because what I found was, 5 years ago, I'd wake up and I was just like ready. I was just running full speed ahead, working on the business, just like, the hustle culture, like grinding 24/7. Like I was just up and at it. But now I wake up, and I wake up early, but I wake up slow, and I wake up again. I want to feel grounded. I want to search for solitude in the morning so that I can at least get ahead of the wave, because I know the wave is coming every day. But if I can get ahead of the wave, I'm able to catch that wave really smooth versus me just like racing out and just getting slammed by the wave. So that's been the one consistency that has just absolutely changed my life.
Yeah, I love that. I totally resonate with that. There's something to be said about the solitude of the quiet morning before everyone else is up, and just waking up and just having some time to, quiet your mind and get yourself ready for the day.
Come on, man. Come on. Yeah, it's a great place to journal. It's a great place to reflect. It's a great place for me to worship. That's where I worship in the morning. I'm a huge book nerd, so I'm like digging into some sci-fi books or, whatever, just to get my mind off of the day that's to come, the wave that is to come. So, man, it's just been grounding. I love stepping into the workplace after being fully grounded.
What are your favorite books you've been reading lately?
Oh man, I got my bookshelf right here, man. It's just full of books. What's ones that I've been working on recently? It's a new nerdy series called Red Rising that I'm loving. A business book that I've just loved that I keep rereading it's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Have you guys heard about that book?
I have not. You did?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. So yeah, I go back and forth between a business and a sci-fi book, just to keep my brain fresh and, curious of different stories. So.
Yeah, I love that. My dad always says it's important to read one fiction book for every nonfiction book you're reading. Yes. I feel like I'm always just trying to I feel bad if I'm just reading for pleasure, but then when I do, it's like you're reminded the power of that. So that's cool to hear.
Amen. Yeah. And just finished Atomic Habits, and that's just a classic, man. I mean, it's just so good. Just I love that. A reminder of just how those small habits just compound, and so good.
Mm-hmm. So going back to you talking about the side hustle culture, I think one thing that's really big with young professionals today, and I'm sure when you were younger 6-7 years ago, is making money on their own through things like drop shipping, freelancing, making money on your computer, basically, by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think there's obviously a lot of benefits in that. But also I feel like a lot of people can get content with just doing that and kind of get stuck and not progressing their career. So, I mean, I guess I would ask you, one, did you ever do that? Or was jumping in and starting Beyond Blue right away kind of your first entrepreneurial venture, I guess?
Yeah. It's funny. Earlier today, I was listening to the podcast that the two of you did on managing tension. And you guys talked about this a little bit. And you talked about the doers and, the thinkers. And I love the quote that you had in there, Richard, of just what Andy Stanley said of like, he's going to hire a doer all day long versus a thinker. And I love that, man. And as I was listening to that, I am a radical doer almost to a fault. I have started so many different, ventures that have failed, and some that have done really well. But I get a lot of joy out of just doing. And maybe it's because I'm kind of dumb. Like I don't think about things much. I just go, both feet in without even thinking. But that's always been my mentality is like, hey, listen, I'm going to learn on the way. I'm not going to get it right. I am not a perfectionist at all. I suck at the details. And so I'm just going to run and I'm just going to see what happens. So I don't know. I'm sure there are other people like that, who have that same personality who they just don't think, man. They just do. They have an idea and they just run towards it.
Well, you've evidenced your early mornings are the ways to put your doing to work is by slowing down, reading, learning, exploring. So you're putting them together and surround yourself with people that have strengths in areas that you have weaknesses.
Right. Exactly, man.
I want to dig a little deeper into this side hustle culture. This is a statement that's going to be disguised as a question. I don't know that entrepreneurialism and side hustle are the same thing. So I would like to know your opinion of the current side hustle culture as it exists kind of for everyone. What are your thoughts about it? Is it good? Is it not good? What are the benefits? Just tell us about your thoughts around side hustle culture.
That's such a good question. I love it. Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. Every side hustle that I've ever started has failed. Every single one of them. But every venture that I've started, it has actually worked because I've started 3 ventures and all of them have worked. And really when I think of side hustle, I really am just thinking of a get rich quick scheme. I'm thinking, that I'm just going to drop ship something on Amazon and just start making a ton of money. And obviously that works for some people and some people hit the gold mine. But man, it takes work to have a business. I put 40 hours a week plus into Beyond Blue, and it requires a lot of my time, and it wouldn't work if I wasn't there. Putting all my brain power and like pushing it forward. So I can't imagine if I'm putting 1 hour a week into a side hustle. I mean, that's going to fail all day long. At least for me in my life. And so, yeah, it's a really good question. For me, side hustles just don't work, but I can have several businesses if I'm putting brain power and investment and work into. So maybe that's my own lens in which I'm viewing side hustles. Is I'm thinking just get rich quick schemes, little work. I just throw something up and I start making money. That's what I think of when I think of side hustles. Is that kind of where you're going with that question, Richard?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's I think that because there's so many side hustles accessible, whether it's a rideshare app that you're doing on the side or you're trying, drop shipping something on Amazon, there's nothing wrong with someone trying to earn a little bit extra money to pay the bills or get ahead or build for something in the future. And that's a lot of where that comes from. But what you said, I think is really critical. You put your energy and effort into a venture and it creates something for you long-term, and you do something on the side. Maybe it does something, maybe it doesn't. But what it does for sure is distract from any venture you might put that same energy into. Right.
Well, and, the hope would be that the ventures eventually become the side hustles. The ventures, I've put enough time and energy and work into a venture to where it actually is just now a side venture that's actually just producing income for me. I mean, that's obviously the goal for most people. It is the goal for me is to create that, but it's not the opposite way. You don't just get to turn something on and start making money most of the time. I know people who have done that and it works, but 98% of the time, that's just not reality.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people my age or any age, they have side hustles with the goal of that side hustle turning into something big. Yeah. And that's why they're doing it. They're they go work their job every day, and then at night they're grinding on this thing that they're passionate about, that they want to grow. And I think that's a lot different than the driving Uber Eats for extra cash or drop shipping something for extra cash. So, I mean, that's a whole different route. And I'd be curious what you'd say about that. Like, was Beyond Blue for you? Did that start out right away? Like you putting in 40 hours out a week, or did that kind of have to start out on the side in addition to something else?
No, I jumped all in on Beyond Blue. I didn't have a wife or a child at that point. So I was able to kind of be lean, and, I left school to do some pastoral work. I worked at a church. I worked as I was doing pastoral ministry. I just, I saw God pulling me into jumping full time into this thing with my business partners. And so that was not a side hustle, but, as I run Beyond Blue, I have a side hustle, but it's not a side hustle. It's a side venture that I'm working on. And it's a peer advisory group that, Jesus following business owners, come to and gather once a month. And so I do that, and that is my side venture. And that's something that I can speak to because I'm doing it actively. I'm doing it while I'm running a company, working 40, 50 hours a week doing that. So hopefully that speaks to a little bit about the difference between a side venture and a side hustle.
Yeah. What would you say, like, if you had to give like differentiators or a definition, like if someone's got something going on the side right now and they're listening, feeling kind of convicted about it, like how would they know whether it's a valuable venture to keep pursuing or a hustle that might be taken away from some area they should be putting their all into?
Yeah, man, the answer is just value. Like it is what you're doing, creating value for other people. Every side hustle that I've started has always been about me and making money for me. And it's failed every time. And so, man, it's just not fun anyways. Like, I've done the drop shipping thing. I've sold stuff through Shopify. I've done all of those things, but my heart posture for all of those were, how do I make my bank more full? Not how am I creating more value? How am I connecting with people? How am I, adding value to society or to my local economy? None of that. It's always just been about me. But in the companies that I've actually worked, it's been about, hey, I want people to come around me. I want to do something that actually makes a difference. And so that's the difference.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of comes down to just what's your general purpose behind this thing you're doing on the side.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I also want to ask with Beyond Blue, at what point into you running that, like at what point were you confident that it was going to have long-term success? Or in other words, like at what point were you like, I made it? And you may still not even think that today, but like at what point did you not have stress every day thinking, is this going to exist 6 months from now?
Man, that's a great question.
And what made you feel that way, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, money can solve a lot of issues. Money can solve a lot of that. So when there's money in the bank, you can feel a little bit more settled. But I still feel that, at times, even with 15 employees, I still wrestle with that anxiety of, man, I hope this is around in 6 months, right? So that I definitely, in no sense of the word, do I feel like I've made it. But on the days that I do feel like I've, accomplished something or gone over some type of hill, it normally comes in the form of referrals of people saying, hey, these guys crushed it for my business, and I can now send my kid to college where I couldn't before because of their marketing. Like, I got to send you my people. On those days, I feel like, hey, we're actually doing something, man. I feel like I've jumped over a hill and I've climbed up something. And so, yeah, it's, more than just the money. It's that, man, feeling like, hey, we're actually making a difference. And there's, again, that word momentum. I feel the momentum.
Yeah. One of the things we want to keep away from on this project is showing highlight reels. Social media typically is everyone's highlight reel. So you look at that and you assume, oh my gosh, Hunter Wiley's had a rocket ship from the beginning and everything's been great and wonderful. And what we want to be open and honest, and you've already shared some vulnerability. So I want to transition to, what have you seen as some of your greatest failures or challenges over the years? And what did you learn through those?
Oh man. Yeah. So much, man. I I am guilty of like crying under the fetal position under my desk several times, man, because this thing is hard. Like running and sustaining and empowering a business is difficult. And so there's been a lot of failures. Two things come to mind. Number one would be just bad hires. If it's just not a good culture fit, but the talent is really good, man, that has come to bite me in the butt. I mean, seriously, like really bite me in the butt. And I've dealt with that a handful of times in the last 6 years where we've just taken, 8 steps back. So there's that. The second thing would really just be bringing on clients into our business that we should have never brought on. It's always easier to look back, but at the beginning, man, I was taking on anybody that would give me anything to do their marketing. And that really, was tough when people had a $500 a month budget and I was doing the best I could for them, but it just wasn't enough to really make a difference. And I was so stressed over it. And so once I started to set some good expectations and set some boundaries of, hey, I can't even do marketing for you if it's not above this number that is exponentially more than you have. That started to change things for me. But man, I regret just taking on anybody, and I regret hiring specific people that I should have never hired.
Another question around Beyond Blue. So like, I know you have an office with like an in-person team, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not virtual. So I feel like obviously in today's day and age, like remote work is more popular. And then also I think with digital marketing, I feel like that's pretty common. Like you could run an agency with everyone being at their house from their computer. And so I want to know why do you have an office and a team in person, and what are the benefits of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. We have, out of our 15 or so employees, we have 3 or 4 of them that work in a different state. So some of them work completely remote. The majority of our team works in office in Loveland. And here's what I love about being in the office. The collaboration that happens is so good for our culture. When I can, see people face to face, it's just easier for me to connect with them. It's harder for me to go out of my way to call some of our employees that are in different states to see how their weekend went. But it's really easy for me to just walk by someone's desk and say, hey, how was the weekend? I know you're doing that thing with your husband. Tell me about that. So from a culture perspective, it's huge. I don't know if we could do it if we were fully remote, because our culture has been that for so long. But I will say that I think that we've done a good job of collaborating and doing a hybrid model. So for 6 years, we've done a Monday, Wednesday, Friday in office schedule, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are work from home. Everybody in our company. So our entire office is completely empty Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's just has been a game changer. I mean, I was doing that before it was cool. And I did that because that's how I wanted my week to look. I wanted a couple of days in the office and a couple, I got to eat lunch with my wife today, and I got to hang out with my son in between meetings today. And that was awesome. But I'm ready to be at the office tomorrow. I'm ready to collaborate with my team tomorrow. So that hybrid model has been amazing for us.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. I think that's what I feel like most people are saying coming out of COVID and everything, that like there's benefits to both, and going one way too much one way or the other can be a problem.
Right.
So that's cool to hear you've been doing that for a while. And it also I love hearing how much you're mentioning culture and how important that is to you and your business. And I mean, is there anything else you could add to that idea of culture and why you prioritize it so much over just people producing results?
Yeah, I've never been a profits first type of guy. I mean, I love making money. Don't get me wrong, but my spiritual gift is apostleship, and really what that means is one of the reasons that God put me on this earth is to gather people around me and say, hey, let's go together. Let's go do this thing together. Let's go climb this mountain together. And because of that, that's translated to our culture, where I feel like, man, I just want people to be around me, and I want to go just climb Mount Everest together, because I don't want to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's the 3 in me, the Enneagram 3 in me, or maybe that's, the apostle spiritual gift in me. But it's always been important to go just slay things together.
Yeah, I love that. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. We want to jump into our think wise questions is what we're calling them. So the first question is all about how you think. So tell us something that you do or a way that you think that is totally different from most people. And how has it served you well in your life and in your career? And have you always thought this way?
Interesting, man. Such a good question. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of things shifted for me when I became a Christian, and I became a Christian later on in my life. So in that way, my mentality switched completely. I went from being like the hustle culture mascot and ambassador to like, hey, actually, I think I had that wrong, and I completely switched my mindset when I became a Christian. Not that there's anything unchristian about, being in the hustle culture. But when I became a Christian, I just started to reprioritize things. Like, man, wait, no, I actually want to have thriving relationships, and I actually want to be healthy physically and emotionally. And some of those things that weren't as important to me before, it was all just about growing the business and growing, myself and self-development and all of that stuff. It all changed like dramatically once I became a Christian. And so, man, that's a big piece. The second piece that I think is really different is I have in recent years become really dialed in on why I'm here on this earth. And I paid a counselor to go through a life plan that kind of helped me figure out like how I make decisions and who I am and how I'm wired. And it came down to 4 simple things of why God put me here. And the first one is to launch leaders. The second thing is I'm here to pioneer opportunities. The third thing is to deeply connect with people. And the fourth thing is to live a life surrendered with Jesus. And so if all of those 4 things the boxes are checked off with an opportunity, I say yes to it. If one of them isn't checked off of, I get a gig opportunity, but I can't deeply connect with people, it's a no for me. Or if I get a speaking opportunity, but it doesn't align with one of those 4 things, like I'm going to say no to it. So I think in that way, it differentiates me from a lot of people, man, because I have this clarity of how I make decisions that I didn't used to have. But I have this clarity of like, hey, these are the 4 things. So I don't know, man. I don't know if that separates me from, other people, but I think it gives me an advantage. And I think it would give other young people an advantage if they had that type of clarity.
Yeah, I love it. It just speaks more to the whole idea of having deeper purpose with everything you do.
Come on.
Well, and deeper purpose with a filter. There's a lot of us that have great purpose and desire and drive, but we don't have a lens at which to see clearly, should we open this door, should we not?
Yes.
And you're not, every door you open, there's not gold behind it. But every cave that you fear to enter, there is some gold in there. And you are a dragon slayer, Hunter. I love this. I love this about you. You're humble. You're intentional. You're the type of person who, whether it's your apostleship or just your care for other people, there's so much about you that I think is attractive and I respect. So think wise. The next question is about wisdom. You've been sharing a lot of wisdom with us. Give us something that someone shared with you. What's a bit of wisdom someone shared with you that served you well in your life?
I love that. Well, and thanks for the kind words, man. It ditto to you. I wrote this down this morning, actually, and this is a bit of a tidbit of wisdom that I received, not from a person, but from a book that I was reading this morning. So if you're okay with me sharing it, I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
It's from Proverbs 3. It's 5-6. And it just spoke to my heart this morning as I was reading it. And it says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways, submit to him and he will make your path straight. I just love that first part, man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And you guys see that like on bumper stickers and like in people's bathrooms, like hung up. And so I know it's real cheesy. But the heart posture of that is just really good. when I try to lean on my own understanding, it just doesn't work. It crumbles. When I try to like pull myself up by my bootstraps and make my own path straight, it just doesn't work. And so, man, I need that bit of wisdom. I needed that this morning. And so I don't know if anybody else needs that, but for me, that's good.
Well, that speaks to the importance of humility.
Right. Well, that's what Proverbs is all about. Proverbs is all about wisdom. Solomon writes Proverbs, and God, in honoring Solomon, says, I'm going to give you anything in the world. What is it that you want? And he doesn't choose riches. He doesn't choose fame. He chooses for God to give him wisdom. And because he asked for that, guess what? God then entrusts him with all the riches and all the fame and the glory that comes alongside. But he first asked for that wisdom. And I think, that's what as people, we're seeking this wisdom. And wisdom comes from a couple of places. It comes from birthdays, and it comes from getting your teeth kicked in. You have these challenges and struggles, and then the longer you're around, you gain it. And if we're not willing to learn from our mistakes, and that's a theme of what we've been hearing today, is you're reflecting back on places where you could have, should have, would have done something different. And now you get to, because you're reflecting on that and you're growing in your wisdom. So thanks for sharing.
So good.
So last question, we're all about taking action. If somebody were to listen to this today and go do one thing to further their life, further their career based on hearing this conversation, what would that one action step be that you would give them?
Great question. For me, I'm hyper relational. And so the answer is always people. And if I'm that person who's like, what's the next step? I'm going to go take that person out to coffee, whoever that person is. If I'm trying to step into a new industry, or I'm trying to learn how to build a business, then I just want to go be around the people. I want to go be around the people that are doing it well. And so the relation piece is the answer. People always say your net worth is your network. And that's so true, man. It's so true. I want to expand my network, not just for the sake of expanding my network, but to just have more people that I can deeply connect with. And so that's the next step if I'm that person listening.
I love it.
Guys, thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure and an honor, and truly blessed to have listened to y'all and answer questions from you. Seriously.
Yeah, this is super fun. Thanks for everything you shared. I know anyone listening is gonna benefit a lot from taking the time to listen to this conversation. So thanks again.